Shalom, Erev Shabbat, Parshat Pinchas. You know, anybody who looks at the world scene and believes in God is going to ask a question. Why did God put us in the middle of three continents and 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, or I don't know, I haven't counted them lately, nations that want to kill us? You know, you want to create an Am Segula, a nation, a chosen nation, a special people, in order to give them your Torah, and then you put them in the hardest place in the world to be, where you're going to be surrounded by your enemies forever, and they want to kill you, and they're not apologetic about it. Actually, they're very self-justifying. In your name, God, they claim the right to kill us. Why did he put us here? You know, couldn't he give us a little island somewhere where no one would bother the Jews? Of course, that would be too simple. That would be very simple. And yet, it would actually change reality for everyone. Because when you're an infinite, eternal being, and you have this amazing document of how to live, if you're part of that eternal being, you're made in God's image, you need a guidebook. You need a manual for how to live like the being that made you. That's the Torah. And so I'm going to give you that book, God says, but it's going to be a test. And I'm going to put you out in the middle of the middle of the middle of civilization, at the crossroads of the highways from China to Europe, from Africa to Russia, from India to Scandinavia. The Jews are in the center of all world commerce for 4,000 something years, at least when Abraham got here. You know, Abraham, he was a patient guy. You know, he waited 100 years just to have a kid. And he had another 75 years to fulfill the rest of his mission. And you see this land this beautiful place that we live in, it wasn't chosen just because of its geographic location. It was chosen because it's the place, the first place, that the spiritual light of creation became physical. And that's called the Even Hashti'ah, the foundation stone, which is exactly beneath the golden dome built a long time ago by the Muslims to honor the place of the sacrifice of Abraham for Isaac. And then, you know, Islam came along and said, no, that was Ishmael that was on the altar, not your son Abraham, your older son Ishmael. He was the one. See, so rewriting the narrative is about as expected as taxes and death. There is almost no narrative that hasn't been rewritten. That's why the Jews are so strict about every letter in every Torah that's ever written or printed should be exactly like the original. That's one reason. But again, why did God put us here? To suffer? To be hated? To be shot at? To be marauded? To be raped, pillaged, and plundered? Doesn't sound like a God I want to serve. No, my friends, he put us here to carry his name, because he knows this world is only a corridor to a much greater world, a world where we're not bounded by our bodies and our eyes and our senses, and we are part of something much greater. So he put us in a corridor of all nations, cultures, and history. And in that corridor, we would meet everybody, and everybody would meet us. And everybody would see, who are these people with the funny, side locks and these big beards? Who are these people that they don't work 7 days a week, God forbid? You know, they circumcise their children. They don't mix with other nations. They don't make peace pacts through marriages. They're so different than us. What is it about these people? So God put us in the intersections of history in order that the world should see us, and that the world should know us, and that the world should learn from us how to live a righteous, satisfying life. And well, history, I guess, still is going to judge us in many times and in many ways. And only God can judge man. And I don't think too many human beings are capable of judging themselves, much less a 4,000-year-old nation. So on this Shabbat, the Shabbat of Pinchas, the Shabbat where we remember the vengeance taken for holiness, because the unholiness entered the place before the tabernacle, that the Jewish prince was seduced by the Moabite princess who countries across the river, and they didn't do what they did in private. They went out in public, and that was a desecration of God's name, of his people, of his Torah, of everything that we stand for. So swift action was needed, and it was executed. We're not happy about it. We're never happy when our enemies fall. We're happy that God wins, because his victory becomes our victory, our sustenance, and the, I want to say, justification of all these years of living in this place, because we elevate his name to really the King of all kings by withstanding the onslaught of the nations. Now it's global, so it's everywhere. It's everywhere. There is no day where you do not hear of a new anti-Semitic event. And all those events are to show the world that there is a king, and a king of kings. And there's a nation who is here to teach us how to live. Because you see, without law, without the moral law, not the laws that are all self-evident by our desire to survive, all the laws of any normal country, but rather the laws of a nation that understands what it means to be created in God's form and commanded to live in that form, to live with the holy intention of our being here in the first place. And when you live like that, you have instant access to joy. And it's a joy that you could lose it, but it'll come right back when you remember who you are and why you're here. And that is the plight of every Jew, and every non-Jew that attaches to the Jewish nation is part of that mission. God bless you all. Shabbat Shalom.